So today we are going to talk about this incredible book that has changed so many lives. It's Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom, and it's a true story about how a student reconnects with his teacher after many years, and that too at a point when the teacher is going to die. Zainab, I know you have taught this book now for 3 years to grade 10. I want to know, how has the experience been?
It has been extremely rewarding, Mariam, been extremely rewarding. I cannot even begin to describe at what level we are when we are reading this book with the children. Other than the fact that it is an excellently written piece of literature, it is a true story, and that is something that helps the children connect to this particular piece of literature even more. So, talking about things like death is a very difficult task when it comes to children of grade 10 or children of grade 9, but this book I think makes all of that very easy. It makes it easiest I think.
That is so true. We say we go to school to learn life skills, and having the perspective of the reality of death and being aware of that perspective at all times, I think it makes a person a good human being. Like Maulana Ali says, that when you know about death, then you feel that you can appreciate all the things that there are in life, even the small things that you appreciate. And that's exactly what Morrie talks about in his book. He says that when you actually realize that death is coming, that's when you start living.
So true.
Children this age, teenagers who are in the prime of their life, to be able to share this reality with them, how do you think it puts their life into perspective?
I think, Bain, many of our children are already, like we have discussed this before also, that at one point or other, they have been, they have encountered death. For example, it can be the death of a loved one, it can be the death of a very close family member. So when we talk about losing someone very close to you, someone very, someone who's a beloved, that only connects you to life in a very different way, because when you lose someone very precious, you are your most vulnerable self, and that's your truest self. So I think when we talk about death and the very heavy themes that this book has for any reader of that particular age, giving them that particular dose with this kind of wisdom that this book has, I think that leaves an impact that is inerasable. Children are able to understand that death is not just an end, but it's a beginning of another life. That is something that we have talked about multiple times. Religiously we talk about it also. We know the significance of death as a transition period, but this makes them aware and makes them embrace it, I think, in a much more fulfilling way. They know that, okay, this happens and this is going to happen to everyone. So if it has happened to my grandmother or to my grandfather or to anybody else in the family, I know how to be there for the others, because it's a transition phase, even for the living and even for the dead.
Absolutely. Two very important themes in this book also are optimism and love. And when Morrie talks about love and about how love is everything, he talks about familial love. He talks about a little community that you build with the people that are closest to you, and how important it is to value those people. Coming to optimism, I want us to talk about how important it is to instill this life skill in our youth. How do you do that in the classroom?
I think, Bain, the fact that the children can openly, shed a tear or two, they can sob. The day when we go into the classroom and I show them this book, we talk about the cover page, I tell them one thing very clearly, that whenever we are going to read this book, and if you feel like crying, or if you feel like shedding a tear or two, and if I also cry, please don't, we will not make fun of anyone who cries, because it's very natural that when one reads about something very touching, there might come a point when you would want to cry, and if that happens, let it be. So when the class is ready to embrace that kind of an atmosphere, for example, in an all boys classroom where these are hardcore boys, who play on the field, who are very rough also, So when they sit in a classroom and they're willing to accept this challenge that, okay, fine, if you want to cry, we will, and we will not feel ashamed of it. And even if you do, we'll not, look at you as if you're doing something else. When that comes in, Mariam Bed, then I think anything can be taught to these children. And talking about optimism, this book is right from word one to word last. This book is all about optimism. Even when Morrie is dying, is on his deathbed, and he knows that he's going to face death at one point. It can be tomorrow, it can be the other minute. He is optimistic, and that tells our children. This teaches our children a very important life lesson. So many things happening in the world: terrorism, attacks, rapes, plundering, looting, political instability. Hope and optimism is a rare thing, Ben. And if this book or books like Tuesdays with Morrie are taught in the classroom, I think optimism can also be taught. It's very much like confidence, Ben. Nobody is born with it, but it can be taught. It's very much like creativity. There was a time when people used to say that people are born intelligent. You cannot teach anyone to be intelligent. But now research is proving that you can teach people to be patient. You can teach people to be forgiving. So why not teach people to be optimistic as well? It's possible.
Absolutely. There are so many things that I want to discuss, but for today, I would like to, end on a question that you ask your students when you're teaching this. What would be the words that you would want inscribed on your tombstone? For Morrie, it was a teacher till the end. What would it be for you?
Mariam Ben, every year when I do this with the children, I get so many responses, and every year I have a different response. So this year, I would want it to be a helper, somebody who's there, who has been there for you, somebody who has been there for people who relied on her. So I would like to be the girl next door, somebody who's available, somebody who was there when you needed them.
I know you are a go-to person for many people.
Thank you, Ben.
I highly recommend this book for everybody out there, be it a teenager or somebody who's in their mid-20s or in their mid-40s or whenever. This book is a must-read and it will help you appreciate so many things about life.
And when you sit down to read it, please don't feel ashamed of shedding a tear or two, because that is what makes us all human.
Leave a
Thank you.
comment about what you felt when you read this book.
Thank you, everyone.